starting the recording right now and we can get started. So again, welcome to the last spring webinar, How to Communicate Your Project. Here we'll talk again, like I said, through the wrap-up event, through the final project, through questions that you may have, as well as going over a little bit about how you'll receive your volunteer hours after you finish your submission of your project. So as always, we always begin with our land acknowledgement. So as a community, we have a responsibility to honor, care for, and respect all that creation gives to provide us with life. This includes the land, water, air, fire, animals, plants, and our ancestors. The Anishinaabeg peoples have utilized this land for millennia, and we would like to acknowledge their direct descendants, the Mississaugas of the credits of the First Nation, as the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land upon which we live, work, and conduct ourselves. We acknowledge our treaty relationship, Treaty 22, and the responsibilities to both the land and these original peoples. We also recognize that this land is rich in pre-contact history and customs, which includes the Anishinaabeg and the Haudenosaunee, and since European contact has and continues to be home for Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. It is in the spirit and intent of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement, whereby we will collectively care for and respect the land, water, animals, and each other in the interests of peace and friendship and for the benefit of not only ourselves, but of our future descendants as well. Cool, so welcome to the call. As always, I'm here to guide and to support you. On the call with me as well is Georgia, so she'll be taking a look at the chat, so if you can see the chat function below, do feel free to use that in order to ask your questions. I'll be answering all questions at the end. Like I said, this webinar is really to go over the project and all its sort of facets and forms, what you can expect for your final project if you're submitting, if you have any questions about the calculations or the final submissions, as well as what's happening after with the wrap-up event and your volunteer hours, which I'm sure you're wondering how you're going to be getting those hours as well. So yeah, both of us are here on the call for you. Cool, just a reminder of these important dates. You'll note that the project is not due on the 25th. I didn't update this slide, but it is due tomorrow, so you have a little bit more time due to that extension. I hope that you had that full weekend and a couple extra days were helpful to you. It's nice that we get this time in order to gather to answer questions as well, which we wouldn't have normally had with that past due date. So just a reminder that the projects are due on April 28th by midnight. That means end of the day exactly. I did leave the form open a little bit in the morning on the Thursday, so if you do want to pop in again before 8 a.m., that's just a little bit of wiggle room for you guys, which makes things a little less stressful, then do feel free to submit that, but I would encourage you not to leave it to the last minute. If you've seen or looked at the form, we can look at it again today in this time together, but there's just a couple sections that you might need to write out. It's easier if you do so in advance, so that way if anything goes wrong with the form or anything like that, that you're not left stranded. And of course, yeah, we're right now in our final wrap-up info events, how to effectively communicate your impact. This is our final spring webinar. And then another date change for our Gen Green wrap-up event. Currently, it is going to be on May 14th, but I am shopping around a different date. May 14th is a Friday. I wasn't sure if that was a great date for us all to gather together virtually, so there might be some updates to that date. So I will stay tuned to your emails. Everyone is invited to the wrap-up event, whether or not you participated in Gen Green Project or the conference or you attended our project launch event. So you're all invited. You can invite your friends and your family, our teachers, HDSB staff, our judges will all be there, some other members from HEN. So it'll be a nice time for us all to celebrate the projects that you guys have spent so hard working on. Cool, so far we've had our conference, we've given in our project proposals, we've worked on our proposals, you might have finished your calculations, or working on your calculations in your final submission. So here we're going to talk about the presentation, so what comes after your final submission, and a little bit more about the wrap-up event as well. But like I said, we'll try to focus a little bit on the calculations and the final submission during this webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Even if it's very specific to your project, we'll cover all questions at the end of the presentation. So it'll be helpful for you if you just want to make sure you're on the right track, or if you have something that you like to clarify, it could be helpful for you as well. Awesome. So just a reminder, of course, that when you submit your project, you get a certificate of completion from us, as well as your 20 volunteer hours, those community involvement hours, and the potential to win awards. So our judges are ready to receive all the applications. By applications, I mean projects. And then they're really excited to review them and read through what it is that you guys have accomplished in the 6 weeks since we started back in March, which feels like forever ago. So yeah, these are the things, even if you're maybe not interested in that award or even kind of going on to the next step, you will always receive your 20 community involvement hours as long as you submit your project. And of course, you watch 2 of our spring webinars. So if you're here with us today, you've already completed 50% of what you need to do. And if you submitted your project, then you're well on your way to get those 20 community involvement hours, which I will explain to you a little bit how you'll actually be receiving those hours. So yeah, just wait for that. Here is a couple final report frequently asked questions. If you're at this stage where you're doing your calculations and you happen to be using one of the calculation sheets that we shared with you, then of course, the number you need to put into your report is the impact number. This is the cell F5 in the totals spreadsheet. So if you look at the very bottom, there's different tabs. So when in the final report, when you see what is your final GHG admission impact, this is the number that we're most interested in. If you're using a different form, it's just using those calculations, pulling your final greenhouse gas emission number, totaling up if you're doing a mix of topics, and then popping that into the sheet. We want to see what the overall reduction of greenhouse gases is at the end of your project. Of course, what your project should include in that final report is a description of your goal. What was your intention of the project? What did you do? That's your methodology. The results. This is how much I reduced my GHG. Discussion is just, this is how I did it. This is what I learned. Maybe while I was doing my project, I came across a challenge or something that I had to shift because COVID regulations, or I just realized that was too difficult for me to do. So I switched my idea a little bit. This is kind of what happened. Talk us through. In the methodology, you just want to put any assumptions or estimates and why you did that. An example of that would be in their calculations, some of those numbers are estimates. You can just say I use the calculations or the estimates given to me in the calculations sheet. Or you could do another assumption is that everybody showers for exactly the same amount of time. If you're looking at shower time, or not the same amount of time, if you're looking at shower time, then that's your project, but they shower like the exact same way, like they don't turn the shower off and then turn the shower back on again. So you're making some assumptions there. It depends on your project. You might not have any assumptions, and that's okay. It's just something to think about as you build your final reports. As well, if you have any images or PowerPoints or infographics or something visual that you want to showcase, like screenshots of tweets that you might have put out that support your project, then definitely feel free to include those. Those are optional, so do not feel like you have to have any images or diagrams or extra visual material. That will come later, which we'll talk about right now for the wrap-up event, but you do not need to put it into your final report at this stage if it's just a little bit too overwhelming for you. But it is important that you submit your final report with that calculation and with all these sort of elements as well. Cool, so just again, as a reminder, this is the link that we can put into the chat. Georgia, sorry I didn't give you this link beforehand. It's the same link that I've been sharing out to you guys within your emails. I'll share it out again tomorrow. It is available on our website, climatecollective.ca/generation-green-2001. So you'll be able to find it there. Do submit your project. You do need to submit your project in order to get your 20 hours, so do not forget. and don't leave it till the last minute. Like I said before, I can only stress how important it is to get your application in as soon as you are finished. Cool. So let's say that you missed the date. Is it too late to sit in your final report? So let's say you couldn't get your report in by end of day tomorrow. You will still be eligible for your 20 community involvement hours, but you will not be eligible for prizes. So we do, like I said, leaving that wiggle room for you. We're not going to be hard and fast. We know that there's school and other commitments that you may have that prevent you from putting in their project, although I strongly encourage you to get your project in at the end of Wednesday with that extra time. Hopefully you have something you can put together. But if you didn't, it's not the end of the world. So we will be still honoring your volunteer hours and the time that you put in, but you will not be able to get those prizes or be judged. So that's just up for you. If you're interested in that and being recognized by our judging panel, then do get your projects in by April 28th at midnight. Cool, and then so that was just a final of the question, a little bit about the final submissions. So again, I'm going to return to talk a little bit about the final report and the calculations. If you have a very specific question for yourself, then do feel free to put it in the chat and I will answer it. Now I'm going to move on to talk a little bit about the wrap-up event. So we have submitted our project either tomorrow at midnight or maybe a little bit after if we're not interested in those prizes or that recognition from the judging panel. What comes next? It's our wrap-up event. So like I said very briefly at the beginning, the current date for it is May 14th, but I'm kind of thinking that the Friday might not be the best date for everybody to join in, hence why the alternate date is May 18th. It's the following week on a Tuesday. So stay tuned. I'm going to confirm that today or tomorrow and send out an email, as well as put it up on social media as well, so you can kind of invite your friends, teachers, other students, yourselves. Everyone's invited to attend the wrap-up event. There will be certain projects, not all projects will be invited to present. Part of the final report is identifying yourself and your project as something that you would like to share with others. You'll see that in part 3 of the final report submission as just a quick question about whether or not you'd be interested in talking about your project at this event. So do answer that yes or no. If you're answering it no, then of course you're still invited to attend, to listen to other people's projects, but you won't be expected to present on your project. So do not stress about that. Hence why I mentioned in the final report, if you're not interested in presenting your project later, then do not worry about that optional section that talks about the pictures and the PowerPoint, because that won't be relevant to you. You just submit your report exactly as it is sort of laid out, and that was perfect, just the amount that you can get for your 20 community involvement hours, and there's no other expectations there. Cool. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about what we would ask if you're presenting at this wrap-up event. So our wrap-up event, again, would be held either on the Friday or that Tuesday, date to be confirmed. I was going to try to do it as an abbreviation, and then I changed my mind halfway through speaking, so that's why, sorry about that. So the date, again, I will confirm with you. It'll be at about an hour and a half, the full event. Again, I'm just confirming the time on what works best for all parties for you. If you have, so just make sure everybody can attend and we're not cutting anybody off. The event will be recorded, so it will be shared widely on FeedLoop just as everything else is. But we'd love for everybody to attend live because it would be more exciting and to see all that impact and all those people involved all in one place. So let's get into the presentation. So in this event here, again, not all projects will be asked to present. It'll be some projects. I'll be reaching out to you personally with an email to give you a little bit more detail about what goes into this. Again, if you are interested, just note your interest in the final report form, so that way I know that right away that you would like to be involved, or if you would not interested, then that was also totally okay, but it's great for me to know in advance as well. So in the presentation, you'll be asked to describe your project and its impact. The presentations will be max about 5 to 10 minutes, not more than 10 minutes. You're free to be as creative as possible. Your presentations should be visual. It's going to be on Zoom. It's going to be something like this. So it can be a PowerPoint, it can be a video, it could be an infographic that you can move around, something that you create online maybe a quiz, I don't know, whatever you'd like. You can get creative as possible. We'd love that as well. I know that we're all very used to these online platforms like Zoom or Google Meets, so we know what we're getting into, and do feel free to present your project however you would like to. So of course, we're going to be using Feedloop and Zoom, like I said, so this is the platform that we'll be using. It'll be very similar to how I'm presenting to you now. In your description of your project, we're asking you just to highlight exactly what you put into the final report. The goal for your project, what happened, the results, what was your impact, and what did you learn? So those are the very basic things that you can put and structure your PowerPoint presentation or your video around, or your art piece or infographic or whatever you'd like to do to express your own project. Like I said here, of course, it can go wide and very diverse in terms of the visual representation of your project. If you have maybe a website or a social media stuff that you created, a picture collage, if you were doing something more creative, maybe you're creating art, or you were doing something, maybe you're on a cleanup and you have some pictures from that, or a video. However you'd like to present your project, we are not limiting it just to PowerPoint presentations. We're open to all different types of forms. Again, if you'll be asked to submit your project, you'll be hearing from me, to present your project, and then we'll sort of follow through with how you can submit whatever form that you deciding to present your project in. But of course, whoever you'd love to show your project, we're open to it as well. Again, I said this before, but this is a question that we've been getting a lot. What does my presentation include? It's basically not everything that's in the final report, but a summary of it. Like I said, it's what was your goal or intention? What was your project about? So it could be, if my project was I was going to carpool from home to school, then my goal would have been to reduce the amount of GHG or greenhouse gases produced by driving from my home to my school. I just said that, but that's kind of what my goal is, as it's very clear. And then what happens, maybe I was driving and then I was biking, or sometimes I walked, or I started off biking, but that wasn't feasible, so I had to drive halfway instead of the full way, and maybe that impact. So I just talked through a little bit. Maybe I have some pictures of me on my bike going back and forth, and then I can put that final GHG number, however I want to represent it. And then I can talk about my learnings. So again, it's only 5-10 minutes, not more than 10 minutes. It'll be brief, and you can express and show your project however it relates to you. Of course, what if you don't want to win anything? What if you don't really want to attend the WRAP event? What if you just want to submit your project and then that's it? That's totally okay as well. You still get those 20 community involvement hours. You'll still receive your certificate of completion, and thank you for being part of the project. Not everybody wants to see what comes after or communicate their project. Sometimes just submitting the project is enough, and that's totally cool with us. Again, if you would like to be part of the judging, we do ask that that you submit your project by end of day Wednesday. In fact, I ask everyone to submit that day, but if you are overwhelmed, just email me, and of course there's a little wiggle room there for you. We want to give you those 20 community involvement hours. We want to make sure that this project is something that you feel like you were able to do, that enriches your understanding of climate action in your own life. So yes, you'll still receive those volunteer hours even if you're not interested in attending the WRAP event later, but you will always be invited to attend. Awesome. So speaking of what comes after, let's talk a little bit about the volunteer hours. So of course, like I mentioned, for completing the project, submitting your final projects, the deadline, of course, is Wednesday. There is a little bit of wiggle room, but please email me if you know already that you're not going to be making that deadline. If you're interested in being judged and winning those prizes, then you have to submit your project by end of day Wednesday. There is no wiggle room there. It's only if you're not interested in what comes later, then maybe you can give you a little bit more time. But do email me if that is something you're interested in, or something that appeals to you or relates to your situation. Not everybody, I know that there's a lot of things going on in your own lives, so I want to be cognizant of that. But again, once you submit your final project, you will receive 20 community involvement hours from us, from the Halton Environmental Network. So we will give you a letter, very similar if you were involved in the HCC Reads program. It'll be very similar to that. It'll be a letter detailing what it is that you've done in part of the project. keeping it pretty general, just overview of what our intentions are, which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This letter you'll be submitting to your school. So because I think schools are all virtual, it was very important that you reach out to your own guidance counselor, or maybe just check out your own school website just to find out whether or not where you're supposed to submit this letter of verification of your hours. So it'll be vary depending on, of course, your school, like I said. It'll vary a little bit. So if you ever need that information, if you need to, potentially if you don't know who your guidance counselor is, or you're not finding that information on your school's website, just email me. I'm in contact with Leah from the HDSB, and I can just ask who the right contact is, so you can email that letter directly to the person who will be counting those hours. Like I mentioned, the HDSB, they know that if you completed this project, that you've hit those requirements, that you'll be receiving these 20 community involvement hours. Of course, they just need that letter from us, which we already have a outline for you. So it'll be very simple. After you've submitted your final project, you'll receive an email from myself or Georgia with that letter that you can submit onwards to your school. And then it will be processed and you'll see their hours. So it'll be very simple. So very little for what you have to do. It'll be maybe one email onwards for you, or just a little bit of work and looking into your website and how to submit your letter on who it's supposed to go to. But that's it, and that's how you'll receive your volunteer hours. Of course, these are resources for our project. If you are not familiar with them, then I do encourage you to go check them out, at least especially at the end. And if you're on Feedloop, or if you haven't got a chance to really go on Feedloop yet, do pop around a little bit, explore. That is where our wrap-up event will be. That is where our conference was. That is where all of these spring webinars are being recorded and inserted. If I inserted, I mean uploaded, so that way you can see them there. And do check out all of these things, the toolkit in particular. We talked through a little bit about the judging process. So if you're interested, or you just want to know a little bit more about what's happening after you've submitted your projects, then do check it out there. Also in the toolkit, I'll put a space there for you to connect about the volunteer hours, specifically that little messaging that I received from the HDSB about where to go for your schools and where to contact your guidance counselors. That I'll put into the toolkit as well, so you remember, so you don't have to refer back to these slides. Although, of course, as part of our resources, all the slides and these recordings are also available on the website for you too. Cool, like I said, everything's on Feedloop. I will make sure to upload all of the events and everything. So Feedloop will stay active up until March 2022. So you'll have over the summer, there'll be lots of great stuff going up there. You do not lose access to that, even though Generation Green program is coming to an end very soon. You can still go in and watch all of that material or interact with that material as much as you would like to. So that is there for you as well until we start and gather virtually or in person, who knows, again in September, and we start Generation Green again, 2021, 2022, but that's for even past the wrap-up event. So you have to cast our minds way in the future for this. Cool, so now I'm going to open it up for questions. I know that there might be questions specifically about different projects. I'm happy to run through the calculation sheet again, the sheet that we shared with you to help you put those sort of more difficult calculations from track, measure, record workshop into a little bit an easier form that you guys can use, as well as to run through the final report. So do feel free to put your questions into the chat. And yet again, I can answer anything that you would like. If there's any other information in this PowerPoint too that you want me to just go over again or just clarify, then do, of course, I invite you to use the chat as well, and we'll just answer questions right away. Again, I said if you need to, maybe I'll do a quick look of the calculation sheet right now because I did prompt myself. Okay, give me 1 second. Again, if you're thinking of any questions about the final report, about the calculations, about the wrap-up event, about the presentation, all of this information, again, will be given to you on our website from those resources on Feedloop and emailed as well, so you'll never miss out on anything, even if I run through it very quickly right now. So give me a second, I'll just show up the calculation sheet again, just so that we're all familiar with it. If you have not gotten a calculation sheet and you're only just hearing about it, then that's okay too, but do email me so that I may make sure that you have the sheet. It'll be very helpful to you. I cannot stress enough how easy the calculations will be for you once you see the sheet. If you happen to do the calculations yourself without the sheet, then that is totally okay as well. You do not have to use the sheet. Sometimes for some projects, the sheet isn't exactly feasible. Maybe there's things that you're doing that are outside the boundaries of what the sheet kind of entails. But here it goes, just as a little overview for you. If you've already seen this before, then maybe it's just a recap for you. If this again is your first time seeing it, this is our calculation sheet. You'll notice that there's these different tabs below. You don't need to worry about that tab. About the food, the waste, the home electricity, and transportation. These were the different topics that you chose. If you cast your mind back to March 26th when we submitted our project proposals, these were the topics that you chosen. So again, if you are looking at your specific topic, say that I look at food, then of course you would choose your item. It can be anything that you're eating, or maybe so you're very specifically focusing in on meat, like I am in my sheet right here. I'm eating beef, I'm eating chicken, I'm eating lamb. You put how much, that's in weight. So if you have a scale or some way that you can weigh this, even if it's like a scale that you step on to weigh your body, you can just put a bowl. You can make a note of what the bowl is the weight is, add the meat into it, take the meat out, and you can minus that final amount with the meat and the bowl by the actual just amount of the bowl, and then that's what your final amount is here. So you can put those weights in. Again, don't remember that you need to have done a baseline calculation. So baseline means what does my normal behavior and what is my actionable behavior. So baseline is before you've done your action, program is after. So in this column here, you're doing before you've enacted your action. So you put everything in just as it was. If things get a little wonky, just put, well, we'll go over that in a little second anyway. Then with the carbon intensity, you just look here for food. You look at the items that I selected. I selected beef, which is 27. Chicken, which is 6.9. And lamb, which is 39.2. You'll notice in this sheet here that the calculations are already done for you. This is the benefit of this sheet here. If you are doing the sheet yourself, then I encourage you to try to use Excel to its full potential. You can make your own calculations here. And you'll get this, of course, when you fill out the other side, you'll get the same result. So it'll pull, it's again, as a calculation on this side, it pulls everything, you get your final GHG emission for 7 days. Something I want to call attention to, you'll notice in the final report that there's a section about whether or not you are continuing your project, or potentially even in your discussion. You'll notice right here, it says the amount of greenhouse gases or carbon equivalent that you've produced in a year. So if I continued my action, which would be replacing beef and, well, I'll just leave them. Let's say I replaced beef, chicken, and lamb with egg. Like, I messed up a little bit here, but let's say I cut out meat, so I was just I'm not eating any of those meats anymore for 7 days. So 0, 0, 0, and then my egg would be here, something like that. I feel like I messed up my order of things, but basically just put in things exactly as they are, true to your project. So by stopping eating beef, chicken, and lamb, if I continue this action for an entire year, this is the amount of GHG that I would have prevented, or would have not emitted if I had continued with my action. So you can take that number. This is the number if you're only looking at food that we're interested in. As I mentioned, I said that F5 number. But this could be just something of interest for you to talk about in your discussion or your little social justice paragraph as well. Cool. I see that there's some questions. Awesome. Yeah, and if you converted the sheet, or if you didn't even use this sheet, this is not a requirement to use our calculation template. It's just a helpful tool for you. Again, if you're doing a cleanup or something like that, then or a clothing drive, or if you're taking waste or collecting it and reusing it in a different way, this is the tab that you'll be using for yourself. So it's the same thing. You just put in your baseline. For if you're doing a cleanup, then your cleanup is usually done on the same day as your program admission, because of course what you're actually doing is you're taking away the waste that is on the ground in our environment, and you're taking it away in order to sort it, make sure it goes in the right place. So let's say if that is the case for you and you're doing a cleanup, the assumption, which I remember I talked back about in your final report, you might talk about what you assumed, would be anything that's on the ground that you weren't there to pick up during your cleanup would go to the landfill. So let's say there's 1,000 grams of worth of different stuff like straws or coffee lids or coffee cups that would have gone to the landfill if I had not gotten there. Luckily, I did my cleanup, and I was able to throw, instead of 100 grams of all that waste going to the landfill, I knew that some of it was recycling, and maybe I came across some that was compost. You could just basically just split it up how it is, and then the rest goes up here or something like that. So that's basically the whole calculations as well. I've messed up my sheet as well, so you won't see these things pulling through, but usually everything would pull down. It's just because I've been playing around with the sheet. If this is the case with you, that your sheet has gone a little funky and the calculation's not pulling what you actually are meant to be pulling, then just reach out to me. I've got a couple of different versions of the sheet, and I can send you a clean one so you can go back and get back to the way that it was before, so that way it's not affecting any of the calculations here. For the food one, I'll mention as well that if you are, say you're looking at more than 3 food items, you're looking at like 10 or 8 or different food items, you can add in extra rows. Just make sure, again, with other sheets as well, look at those calculations. It's going to be the sum of the row. So if you're adding extra rows, all you got to do is just drag this down in order to capture those other numbers. So if you are having problems with your calculation sheet, or you just want me to take a quick look at it to make sure you're on the right track, do feel free to email it to me. I've been taking a look at other calculation sheets from other students as well, just to make sure that they're on track and that nothing's gone a little bit off, and all of them have looked really good. So if you need that extra support, I am here for you as well. Yeah, let's go through the program admissions section. I'll pick a different tab this time. Cool. So again, baseline admission is basically what would life or your life be like if you had not done the action you've done. So this is your baseline. This is what you're kind of comparing it to. So like the same thing in the clothing drives, you're making the assumption that if I wasn't here to pick up all of the trash on the ground, all of this trash would just decompose as it is, and it would just, or end up in the landfill or the waterways or whatever. Nobody's doing anything about it. But by doing my action, I've now done something, and this is the impact that we're looking for. Cool, so let's start with baseline emissions. I'm looking at my commute from my home to my school. I'm looking at it for 14 weeks. I said 2 days, sorry. I put in my distance here in kilometers. You can find that out by looking at your car. There's like a little meter thing that you can look at, or your parents' car or whatever. Another helpful way to find these kilometers is to even look at Google Maps. So if you put in your 2 locations, like your house location and your school location, in Google Maps, it'll tell you what the kilometers is between those 2 locations, which can be really helpful, and you can put that in here, especially if it's a little bit hard for you to see that as you're driving around. You can look at that afterwards as well. For transportation, do need to put a number in this box here. Even if you're not driving or using a bus, just put 1 here. It's part of the calculation. You just need to specify. It cannot be left blank. And then you put in your energy intensity. So you just look over here at this table 1. You pick the car that best best describes your own car. If you really are not seeing something here that is associated with your car, either do some research, you might have to look it up, or just reach out to me and I can help you either decide which of these best fits your vehicle, your parents' vehicle, or help you find the number that you need. So let's say I have a sports car. Put that in there. Energy coefficient, my car uses gas to drive, so that's just that one there. Whether or not you have like a diesel car or a heavy diesel car, like a bus or a truck, then you can put that information in as well. And you'll see that I get my final calculation. Again, you'll see that it pulls all the information from the cells above. Then on the program mission side, this is the side that we're kind of discussing right now. This is after I've done my action. So I've done my action now. Instead of driving to school, I'm going to be walking to school. Again, even though I didn't take a bus, I still put one here. After transportation is just yourself moving. So I can actually just put 0 because there is no fuel being used while I am walking around. And again here, since I'm not driving, so I'm not doing anything, I just need to put in zeros here. Because what it is especially going on is you're not using any fuel, so I'm literally just choosing to walk. So you'll see that by not driving for 14 days, I really just didn't use any fuel. You'll see that that amount over here minus by 0, of course, is just that amount there. So I'll see my final impact. I'll see my final impact in a week, in a month, and in a year. So that's as simple as it is for calculations. Again, the program emissions is literally just what your action is. So whether or not you decided to turn lights off or not use an appliance, again, if you're using it less, then you just put the amount that you're using it less. So if I didn't, let's say I did do some driving, I didn't walk the entire time, let's say my numbers are going to be off because I'm just making these things up, but let's say I only walked that amount and then sometimes I took the bus, and sometimes because it was raining or snowy or cold, I ended up driving a little bit. So just put those numbers in exactly as they are. If you're driving, I'm driving the same car. Then I put that over here. With the diesel bus, all buses will put over here the amount. So just be truthful to your project and what happened. Again, if you're driving here, then you have to put those coefficients in as well because it is exactly what happened. I was on the bus for a little bit in this other scenario, and you'll see that those numbers automatically shift down here, and you'll get a number down here. It pulls from the cells above as well. So again, depending on your project, you'll get different numbers. If you're getting negative numbers, it's probably because the action that you did is bigger than the amount of emissions you did in your normal. That could be the case. It depends on what's going on. You can always talk about what the process and what happened in your final report as well. Cool, I'm just looking at the questions. Yeah, definitely still submit your project in your calculation sheet, even if you're getting sort of wonky numbers. Sometimes that happens, and just in a scientific experiment, you can't, I wouldn't encourage you to switch the numbers unless like maybe you inputted them wrong, and then maybe I would encourage you to send your calculation sheet to me just so I can take a quick look at them. But if you are getting like numbers that look kind of really weird to you, like I said, first email it to me and then I can let you know if you did fill in the calculation sheet correctly. But sometimes that might happen. Sometimes you might be getting negative numbers. Maybe that is just true to your project. You can always talk about what happened in your discussion. Hence why the final report is part of that final submission, not just your calculation sheet. So you can talk through to us what actually happened and what you did. So even if you're getting some wonky numbers, first, of course, I encourage you to email me first so that I can take a look at them. And then I encourage you just to submit as they are. Be truthful to your project. Maybe something didn't really work out the way that you were expecting, or you didn't get the numbers that you were hoping to get. That sometimes happens. Just talk about it in your final report in your discussion. Yes, you can edit after you submitted your form. What you should happen is after you submitted, you'll get an email from the Google form. If that didn't happen to you, just let me know. And then you should be able to go back in and edit again. It's sort of set up that way, but I'm not always trustful of technology. I feel like sometimes it fails. So if that didn't work out for you, just let me know, shoot me an email, and I can help you get back in and edit your form as well. just reading through the questions just to see if there's anything I can address. Yeah, so that's a great question. As you're adding them in, you're looking at your total drive per the actual 14 days. So yeah, so the number down here will pull what your average GHG would be per day, but your total distance, you want to put the final amount in every single time. So let's say the distance, for example, for me to and from school is 200. I drove every day from Monday to Friday, and I got 200 times 5, blah, whatever, that amount. I can't do math on camera like this. Anyway, so you put that final amount in here, not just the 200 day. That would just seem like, by looking at the sheet, that you only drove 200 kilometers, which wouldn't be truthful to what was actually happening. What you actually did was you drove 200 there, or if it was 100 there, 100 back, or something like that. Just get that amount, keep track of it, look at Google Maps if you need to confirm your kilometers, and then put that in there, and everything else will pull. Again, I can explain that a little bit more. I feel like I didn't quite nail the explanation, but basically, yeah, you just put in, and again, it's the same for the home electronics. Put in the actual amount of seconds. Sorry, it has hours there again. Sorry, I was messing around with the sheet. That you've actually used that item in the duration of the time when you were actually calculating. So if I was using my hot shower for 7 days and I was having a shower for 15 minutes, I would convert those 15 minutes into seconds. I would count every single time out of shower, maybe out of shower every other day. That total amount of seconds, either you're doing it in this Excel sheet that you now have for yourself or a different way, maybe you're recording a notebook, put that final amount in, put it into the sheet, and pull it down. Yeah, that makes sense there. So this is just, again, this is as you've been recording. It's not just the one way. Hopefully, as you've been doing your action, you've been keeping track of what's been going on. This is just a way to put those final numbers, all those numbers that you've collected, into the final calculation so that you can find your final impact. Yeah, so for the final report, which I'll quickly just switch over so you guys can see that as well. For the final report, there is a question that refers back to our theme, which is climate justice. So some topics it might be a little bit more obvious what the topic is that relates the climate justice focus, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, so I'll just scroll to it. Yeah, so that's this question right here, the reflection on your own project. It's really, I would say for this one, if you're struggling to think of a climate justice issue that relates, then I would encourage you to think to the wider climate discussion. Everything that we've discussed and every topic that we have in our project, there is a climate justice focus, or there is at least a climate change associated factor that you could talk about in this section. And this section, this reflection section, is not meant to be hard or difficult. It's just a chance for you to think about how our own individual actions have collective impact. The same way that in that wrap-up event as well, I'm going to take all of the numbers, all of those numbers from the impact calculation sheet. I'm going to put them all together so we can see collectively what our impact is by every individual action that we did for these 6 weeks. What was our impact, and what does that mean globally? So if everybody did one small action, our motto at the Halton Climate Collective and the Halton Environmental Network is every action counts. So by doing one small action, you can have that technically have a big impact. You might not know what that big impact is. This question is a chance for you to think about what it is. Turning off the lights or taking shorter showers, what does that mean in the global climate conversation or the global climate scale? So if you're struggling to think of a topic that relates to your own, then do email me and I can help you talk through maybe something that will relate. We can kind of have a little back and forth. But this one here should just be something where you're reflecting on those conversations we've had in the conference, maybe in your classrooms or with your friends, and you can talk about it here. It doesn't have to be long, just 400 words. That's like one paragraph. So that is that section there. I'm going to throw up, I'm going to go back to my slides, my email, of course, and my contact information. Of course, those are all social medias as well, where we're going to put a lot of information coming up about the wrap-up event. Again, TBD on the dates. May 14th is right now, but it could shift to May 18th. Just again, I want to pick a date that is most convenient to everyone. So that is the date, the updated date as well. I will let you guys know in an email and on social media too. That's my email. I've been talking about how you can email me, send me your calculation forms, or just connect with me. You can do so by emailing this email right here, katrine@haltonenvironment.ca. So do feel free to get in touch with me if you're finding that reflection question a little bit more difficult, or your calculations are just not looking the way you think that they should look, or you're a little bit concerned about the way they look. Then I can definitely take a look at them and just let you know that you're either on the right track or maybe you just missed a section. I know pretty common for that transportation one is to miss that you have to put that one, and that bus is just a very particular way of the way that the Excel sheet is set up. You just need to answer that. So if that's true to you, then just make sure to read through the descriptions on the side very carefully so you can follow through. If you're not finding the information you need, again, you can email me. Here's my email right here. If you're not finding like the energy intensity of the item that you're looking at or something like that, or for food, that carbon intensity, then I can help you find those numbers. I have some sources that I have reference to that I can help you find the things that you're looking for, so you do not have to feel like you have to do all the research yourself. I'm here for you as well. Cool. So if there is no further questions, then I'm going to take this last webinar to a close. If you do think of any other questions, or again, if you'd like to send me your calculation sheet prior to the final due date, which is tomorrow at midnight, April 28th, get your assignments in. I have a couple reminder emails sent your way, so do look out for those. Of course, in the reminder emails will be the link, but of course, if you're looking for that link, maybe Georgia, can we pop it into the chat one more time? So that way you can find it. It's also available on our website. You can see our website right there, climatecollective.ca. Cool. Yep, that's right. George just put it into the chat right now. So you can find out, you can also go there, of course, to find all the information that I referenced to here. There's more information there about all of these recordings, all of the PowerPoint slides, anything you need is all there. So it's a helpful place for you. And again, good luck submitting your projects. I'm very excited to go through all of them. I know, like I said before, that the judges are also very excited to receive all the projects and run through them. So I encourage you to get your applications in so that way you can really take the benefit of the full program. And again, more information about the wrap-up event coming. If you are presenting, then I will send you that information, but I'll just flop back to it really quickly in case you guys might have joined late. But for the actual final wrap-up event, this is what we're asking you to present. Not everyone will need to present. If you're interested, let us know in that final report at the very end. And again, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, that's it from me.